welcome to another episode of the Irish Craft Beer Show. Once again, I'm joined by John Craddock. How's it going, John?
Good, yeah.
So, what are we drinking today?
I don't know. That's the answer.
Well, what we're drinking today is the latest beer from the Dungarvan Brewing Company. It's an American pale ale called Minehead. So it's interesting for the Dungarvan. They're normally known for their their stout is excellent.
They do a bitter, Cumber Challenger seasonal bitter, and their coffee stout, I think, is probably their best.
Good, yeah.
Beers.
You have to say that they're one of the oldest Irish craft breweries. They're around for 4 years now. So.
Oh, and they're definitely old style as well.
Definitely old style.
It's all bottle conditioned beers, and
I will say they're very responsible for bringing the casks back into pubs in Ireland. Now, nearly a few years ago, they were probably the only brewery that was exclusively on cask. But so. It's quite tasty now. It's not your typical American pale ale. It is more the Dungarvan style. Like it's bottle conditioned, and I may have shook it up a bit.
But that's part of the style.
That's part of the style. So it's a little bit cloudy, but yeah, it's very tasty now. And I do taste some yeast, but very tasty. Yeah, I'd say another win.
Another winner. It's a very strong background bitterness of it. Not too hop forward.
Yeah.
The nose around the palate, but my own view with American pale ales these days is there's so many good ones about, and there's so many about that the bar is set quite high.
Yes, it is.
So especially now with some of the specialist off licenses on the Galway bars getting them directly over from America.
Yeah.
So it's hard. It's hard to stand out, even if it is a good one.
Getting over from America can be a kind of a double-edged sword because we get the great brands over in America, but we don't know, is this just off the plane, or has just been sitting on a boat for 6 months? For 6 months. So, these bottle dates on the bottle are quite useful for that sort of thing. I'm sure some people in the off license really hate me pulling out the bottles and looking, putting it straight
like
back.
milk in the supermarket.
But anyway, we're not here today to talk about Dungarvan Minehead, brilliant as it is. Today, we're here to talk about homebrew clubs. So I thought I needed my notes for today's episode, because This podcast, it's about beer, but it's also about brewing and home brewing. And episode 1, we brought you through some of my homebrew beers, but how we try other people's homebrew beers would be through the various homebrew clubs that are around Dublin. Now, what one do you remember of?
South Dublin Brewers.
You remember South Dublin
smaller
as well?
clubs,
Yeah, I'd be a member of Capital Brewers myself, which is based in Dublin city centre. But there's a good few of them in Dublin, but you find around the rest of the country. Some areas are very well represented. I think Cork, I know, has 2. They've Lee Valley, which is from outside the city, and then there's Rebel Brews, which is inside the city. I may have gotten that
possibly the other way around.
I know there's brewing homebrew clubs in Galway. There's what's my notes say? There's Belfast homebrewers in Belfast.
There's Maiden City Brewers in Derry as well.
Maiden City in Derry. There's the Garden County Brewers in Wicklow. But what most of these clubs have in common is they're all part of the National Homebrew Club, which is kind of an umbrella organisation for homebrew clubs in Ireland. They've a very active forum where people can go for getting their tip-offs, tips on homebrew, and some bargain alerts on the
and they organise
recipes. They organise the
bigger events, the national competitions, some of the larger group buys, things like that.
The group buys is really one of the main.
I think it was the driver behind it.
Main driver behind setting up these competitions, because Ireland, it's not that big a market for homebrew clubs just to have loads of equipment sitting on a shelf that you can walk into your local homebrew shop and say, yes, I would like that fermenter and I would like that keg. And kegs, I think the kegs were what drove the National Homebrew Club. The kegs that were sitting on the shelf here were so expensive. We knew we shouldn't be paying.
And you can see on the websites that the gear is much cheaper abroad, but getting 20-litre keg shipped over from England or Germany is prohibitively expensive.
Yeah, but getting 400 of them shipped over, that works. And basically, I'd say that the keg started it, but it became quite a regular thing that, and people nowadays you find people buying little pieces of equipment that never was available in Ireland. Maybe pumps
or if you're buying something over from abroad, you open it up and offer. Does anyone else want to jump in and save shipping? Yeah.
So it's strength in numbers. But my favorite part though about the homebrew clubs, like whatever about the forums and whatever, is the club nights.
Yeah,
the meetups where we find a publican who will let us take over a corner of his pub, and everyone just shows up and brings
a bottle or two of
brew of various different qualities. And I know I've been going to these sort of clubs for years. Capital Brewers now meet somewhere in a pub in the city centre. It moves around. It's kind of a roving thing. We haven't found a home, a permanent home yet. And there's normally maybe about 10 people there. Most people bringing beers. We'll arrive at 7, drinking homebrew till 9, and then of course have to spend something at the bar.
Yeah, to justify your presence.
Justify us. A lot of the clubs now. I know what you've entered competitions via your
through the club.
The
qualifying round will be run through the club, and then the best 2 or 3 beers will be sent to the nationals.
I don't really enter those competitions myself. I've thrown a few into the nationals, but I'm not really a big competition.
That's not your end of thing, yeah.
However, I do enjoy tasting what says won medals in the competitions, and just go, yeah, mine's better than that. Had I entered, I would have.
And it really encourages you to up your game as well. Yes. When somebody else brings along a brew that's 10 times as nice as yours, and you've seen his gear, he's just making it in the shed the same as you. It takes away your excuses.
I say best club meet though in Dublin. It's part of a club that's not actually part of the National Homebrew Club. It predates it. It's what was originally Irish Craft Brewers and founded in 2007, and it's evolved into Beoir, the craft beer consumer organisation in Ireland. And for years, the third Thursday of the month, we've been meeting in the Bull and Castle. And in recent years, that's changed slightly. We've been following the cheap beer night, so we've moved it to the Wednesday night. And last month, thanks to the Soccer World Cup, we were chased out of the Bull and Castle. The big screen showing, I don't know, Italy versus Spain or something was.
Most people just call it the World Cup,
Soccer World Cup. I have to specify. You could be talking about World Cup of chess for all I know. But we were chased out, so we tried a
beer house on Capel Street.
We tried out a new place, Beer House on Capel Street, and let's have a look and see how it turned out.
Hi, my name is Kevin, or Dunkel. This is an Irish red ale. My first ever attempt at brewing an Irish red, because it's not a style I usually drink. Personally, I think it's not bad, but I'm going to increase the crystal malt in the next one and cut down. I put a little bit of roast barley in this. I'm going to cut down on the roast barley. Apart from that, cheers.
It's pretty good for an Irish red, actually. It reminds me a lot of the Little Lamented Beamish Red, which had that kind of strawberry summer fruit kind of softness to it. Lovely texture, very casky, not proper fizz, just kind of an effervescence. I'd be happy. I'd be very happy to have 20 litres of this in my cellar. I would say I'd get through it rightly. I probably wouldn't call it an Irish red.
Hi, my name is Ronan. This is my Irish red, which is this me attempting to scale back my silver winning Irish red entry to a sub 4% beer, but it turned black instead.
There you go. There you are, Andrew. So this is Ronan's Irish red. He's giving it the title, but it's a bit too dark for that. I don't know if you can see on the camera. I'm calling it an Irish maroon ale. It's quite nice. It's almost a stout, is how I describe it. It's a dark roasty ale. This is the same mild as featured in the first episode. People think I only have one beer, but that's not the case. So there it is again. Dark mild, 2.2% ABV. It's my entry in the Summer Session Beers competition this year. So I'll let you know how it goes on.
It's quite clean. It's a little roasty on the nose, and obviously been fermented well because there's no flaws. It's on the watery side, but you might expect that from a mild. There's still a little bit of body left to it, which for a second running beer I think is very impressive. When it comes to roast, it's easy drinking. It's exactly what mild should be.
This is actually it's a historical style. This particular recipe is based on a recipe from Courage Breweries that they brewed in 1923. So this beer, as a style, really is a child of rationing. involves, other than just malt, other than just malted barley, it also involves flaked maize, for instance, and invert sugar. So that's how you know, a lot of the colour comes actually from a dark invert sugar that I used in it, as well as the crystal malt. It's why the low alcohol as well. This one is 3.5%. It's stronger than the previous mild, but it's probably more in keeping with what the strength was actually historically.
It's got a nice slight SV aroma on it, and very light bodied with a very nice dry finish. Good malt backbone on it, and no real hop flavour to it at all. Very nice mild.
My name is Paul. This is my meant to be Sierra Nevada clone pale ale, but I didn't have quite the right hops or the right malt, so it kind of turned into a kind of dark malty strange beer.
For what's being advertised as a malty ale, there's actually a very nice kind of hoppy fruitiness to it. I think the presence of the American hops, those sort of citrus flavours are definitely present, so I get kind of a little bit of grapefruit, some lovely fresh juicy melon rind, a little bit of mandarin as well. It is quite complex. I think I'd go for more of an American amber as a style rather than a red or a dark ale. But I think it works really well. It's nice and cold, it's nice and refreshing, it's not too fizzy. Very nice fruity aroma, very drinkable overall, very thirst quenching, and a very good summer beer.
Hello again. This is Kid Cider from the craft makers, and it's a raspberry and lime flavour cider.
It's actually quite a talent to keep an O'Hara's and a German label on the bottles. Oh lordy, we're in the sweet shop here.
I used all the sweetness.
Sure.
I'm thinking, flying saucers in particular, slightly biscuity, and then with a major kind of sherbet sweet fizz to it.
Absolutely. You've got spot on flying saucers. You're absolutely
with maybe mild overnotes of flump. It's you wouldn't know this was a cider. It's very, very drink for people who don't like drink. There's a considerable amount of unfermented sugar in here, whatever the back sweetened it with. It's for all that, it's very drinkable. If you have this cold, it hits the spot. I don't think I could drink an awful lot of it. I think that sweetness, that candy sweetness, is like.
Well, I use the full sugar on it, it's like, sweet taste, obviously.
Well, this is my beer that was featured in episode 1, which is the Irish Stout. Ooh. And we have ourselves a bottle ball. That didn't happen in the first episode.
I'd love a glass of foam. Has anyone a glass of foam?
So Brian, would you say you're overexcited right now?
Well, just to show that it's warts and all.
It's quite carbonated.
See, I caked most of this, and I just brought a couple of bottles to bring here. So
When did you bottle it?
Sorry,
When did you bottle it?
about 3 weeks ago.
Oh, okay, so yeah, you've got some extra yeast action going on there.
Yeah.
So Brian, are you going to introduce your beer? John, get the camera. I will just pop it off. Like a plaster. Like a plaster. Oh, tell me somebody got that.
That was terrible advice, actually.
Note to self: priming sugar. Measure priming sugar. Seriously, this is going straight in because this is a warts and all podcast. So
It's actually not that fizzy for all of that. There's actually quite a soft level of carbonation. Once all it releases all of its gas all over everything and everywhere and everyone, it's actually it's a very nice beer, and it's definitely not over fizzy. And I think that's the body. I think there's enough of a body of the beer behind it that it has that kind of softness to its texture, that once you get to know it, it's actually quite nice. And very good head retention. It's just the head is retained all over the floor and the table and most of our clothes.
I'm going to stick to the podcast.
Yes, the Warts and All podcast, I have to say. I am editing this. I could have cut that out, but no. I will say, though, that the video viewers just saw my beginning of the volcano. The audio listeners might have gotten a bit more of experience because you'll have heard the reaction to other people, but unfortunately the person who was filming it decided to spare my embarrassment. He'll remain nameless. Well, thanks for helping me with the camera in the last episode.
I turned away too soon, yeah.
Yes, well, my beer, it did kind of explode all over the table, which was a little bit annoying. Especially because it did taste well. It was the same beer, if you remember in episode 1, we mentioned, did finish a little bit high.
Was that the American stout?
No, that was the Irish,
stout, yeah.
Yes. But
here we are, this is it.
This is it.
Beer.
Another bottle from the same batch.
Is that a strong bottle, yeah?
It is. You see,
it's about this far.
I maintain that the reason why that beer exploded was the bottle was sitting in my warm office for a good 12 hours before we finally made it to the homebrew shop. So
I've often had a bottle in a warm office and not had it explode, though. So
yeah, well, that was a particularly warm day.
It was a contributing factor.
It was a contributing factor because I've got another bottle here, and
that's cool, is it?
Feels cool enough, yeah. So, what do you think?
Okay, go for it. No, fair enough. You're just inconsistent in your carbonation.
It was batch carbonated. In your face. Well, I hope that gave you a bit of a feel for the Homebrew Club nights in Ireland. And
they're fairly relaxed affairs.
Relaxed affairs. Until it comes to the national homebrew competition, in which case all gloves come off. So screw you, Liffey Brewers. Anyway, cheers.
Cheers, Brian.